When we think of William Wilberforce, we often think first of victory, the abolition of the British slave trade, a long awaited moral triumph, a man whose work changed history. And those kinds of things can make us feel like he's someone to be celebrated, but not someone we can relate to. After all, we've never had any great victory. We've never had a huge moral triumph, and we certainly haven't changed history. So, why are we talking about him? Because he is somebody who's relatable. Wilberforce's story is not primarily a story of success. That's what we hear about, but there's a lot more to it than that. It's a story of long obedience, quiet suffering, and faithfulness sustained over decades with very little visible progress. That's why he belongs so naturally in this month as we meditate on God's mercies beginning new every morning and learn to trust God's providence in the middle of unfinished work. William Wilberforce was born in 1759 into wealth and privilege. He was brilliant, charming, socially connected, and politically gifted. By his mid-20s, he was already a member of Parliament. His future seemed secure. But in his 20s, Wilberforce underwent a deep Christian conversion, one that changed not just his beliefs, but the direction of his entire life. He seriously considered leaving politics altogether. Instead, after prayer and counsel, he came to believe that God had placed him exactly where he was, for a purpose he had not yet fully seen. That discernment alone involved suffering, the tension between comfort and calling, between personal peace and public responsibility. Wilberforce's life was marked by persistent physical suffering. He suffered from chronic pain, digestive illness, weakness, and episodes of severe exhaustion. He relied on medication that likely worsened his condition over time. He was small, frail, and often in pain, yet carried responsibilities that would exhaust even a healthy body. This matters, because Wilberforce did not fight slavery from a place of strength and vigor, but from a place of limitation. Many of us assume that meaningful work for God requires robust health and endless energy. Wilberforce quietly contradicts that assumption. Beyond physical pain, Wilberforce endured emotional and moral suffering. For years, decades in fact, his efforts to abolish the slave trade failed. Bills were introduced and defeated. Allies wavered. Opposition was fierce. As you know, anything involving money can become very, very contentious, and people hold on to that money tighter than they hold on to just about anything else. He was mocked, dismissed, accused of idealism, and told repeatedly that change was impossible. There were long stretches where nothing seemed to be happening. This is a kind of suffering many people recognize, praying for change that doesn't come, doing the right thing without results, standing firm while the culture resists. Wilberforce believed deeply in God's providence, but not in a simplistic way. He did not expect God to remove obstacles quickly. He did not assume that righteousness would be immediately rewarded. Instead, he trusted that faithfulness itself mattered, even when outcomes were delayed. This is where his life echoes the truth of Lamentations 3:22 through 23. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies are new every morning. Wilberforce lived as though that were true, even when the morning brought pain, more opposition, and more waiting. This is also why Wilberforce fits so naturally with Great is Thy Faithfulness. That hymn does not promise quick victories. It does not celebrate dramatic rescue. It celebrates constancy. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow describes Wilberforce's life exactly. Not strength for the whole battle, just enough for this day. That is often how God's providence works. So, what can we learn from Wilberforce? First, you can be faithful even when your body limits you. Illness, fatigue, and weakness do not disqualify a calling. Second, delayed results do not mean wasted effort. God may be using your perseverance in ways you will never fully see. Third, faithfulness is not the same as success. Wilberforce worked for years without visible fruit and still chose obedience. Many of us are living in similar seasons, caring for loved ones, advocating quietly, praying without answers, standing firm in unpopular truths. Wilberforce reminds us that this kind of faithfulness is not small. Wilberforce lived long enough to see the abolition of the slave trade, and near the end of his life, the abolition of slavery itself in the British Empire. But even that ending does not diminish the suffering that came before. The victory mattered, but so did the decades of unseen faithfulness. God's providence was not absent in the waiting, it was active in every step. William Wilberforce did not live an easy Christian life. He lived a faithful one, and his story gently teaches us this: different lives, different callings, different kinds of suffering, but the same faithful God whose mercies meet us morning by morning. As we continue this month with Lamentations 3:22 through 23, and great is thy faithfulness, may Wilberforce help us trust God, not just for outcomes, but for endurance.